Hey everybody, this is Jonathan Lact, and you are listening to another episode of the Perilous Podcast. And joining me as always in the bunker of doom, it's the co-host, it's Angie Carrier. Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, nothing.
All right, still working on your catchphrase, huh?
I gotta figure that out.
Fair enough. And everybody, you are listening to Jarvik 8 by Kevin MacLeod. Get all your royalty-free music at Incompetech.com, and a little more of that on the outro. And we're back to our usual stuff. We did that special episode a few weeks ago, and again, we're recording this on the same day we did that episode. So I think we're still a little shell-shocked from it. But we're getting back to our usual form, and today, what are we talking about, Ange?
Life on Mars.
Life on...
Or a civilization on Mars.
Or the
would include life.
Yeah.
Also. Yeah.
Would you like to start off?
Sure. I just researched a bunch of... I was looking for evidence of life on Mars.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I have theories, but I will let you go first.
So here's some real evidence of life on Mars. Well, I guess provable real life on Mars. That there's methane, there's water, and there's manganese, which generally all of that is needed for life. So they know that. But in terms of actual people or beings, it looks like rumors were started a while ago, years and years and years ago, but they kind of started, it looks like they started getting stronger in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, I think one of the big ones was a big rumors or big project tied with Stargate project. Yeah. So the Stargate project was under Nixon, DARPA, who, that's why we have the internet.
Mm-hmm. And Al Gore.
Yep, and Al Gore. So the Stargate project was under Nixon. DARPA discovered, allegedly, in this project, they discovered time travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, which that helps with the civilization on Mars. We can get into that. But
which I think is going to lead us into Montauk and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When we can save that for another day.
Yeah. So, Project Stargate was a real thing. They actually were trying to figure out time travel with Stargate. And also evidence of teleportation.
Right. The only thing I will say real quick, and then I will let you continue, is when we are talking about Stargate, we are talking about Project and Operation Stargate. Mm-hmm. Not talking about the show.
Stargate SG-1.
Which is an awesome show.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not talking about actual Stargates.
Yes, no.
Please continue.
I'm talking about the project.
Yeah.
So, so it got terminated and declassified in 1995 because it proved not useful. They were using real scientists to try to learn about teleportation, to learn about mind reading. They had psychics on staff, I think paying them a lot of money. So the info provided seemed doctored and vague, and there was no proof of psychic abilities, and it was a flawed lab. However, there are people that believe that that they did discover time travel underneath it, and that they were working. DARPA and maybe unified Soviets conducted numerous teleportation jumps to Mars in the 1980s. And that's it. Well, maybe that's actually what they're working on now. That's why the Russians are involved.
Right.
That's all. It's just an innocent...
Well, yeah.
Howard Hughes was involved.
Yeah, they're all involved, aren't they? Yeah. Now, look, we have actually had experiments with teleportation recently that sort of prove that, teleportation does exist, but it's still on a almost subatomic level, So it's not beam me up Scotty. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to some of the things you're talking about, which is like astral projection and remote viewing, that's iffy. But when it comes to, when it comes to psychic phenomena and do people have ESP and are psychic powers real, I believe it is. I believe there are people with those abilities, and I believe the government knows that, and I believe again, we've talked about this before, where if there's a weird project that was being run by the government on our side, there was an even weirder project being run on the Soviet side or the Chinese side, or any government delves into this because it's a very powerful weapon and a useful tool. And, just because the government says we shut it down and because there was no evidence doesn't mean it was shut down. It went, ultra black. But for me, that's not really the reason on why there's, again, is there currently a civilization on Mars? No. I don't think so, unless they're living underground But is it?
But they do think that a lot of people do think they're living underground.
No, absolutely. No. There are a lot of people who think they're living underground.
Because there's those like baleen structures that NASA just shared that kind of looks like if you think of a whales, they're baleen.
Yeah.
So it's their breathing.
Well, and there's been some, and if you have Google Earth, there's the Google Earth now has also within it Google Moon and Google Mars, which is very interesting. But there are some weird photos from Mars that show these tubes. I don't know if those are natural occurring. Some people say it's a transportation system. I'm not getting into that.
Yeah.
But for me, where it all started was the Viking photo of the face on Mars. Are you aware of that?
I don't know. I don't know if I saw.
So there's a region of Mars called the Cydonia region.
Uh-huh.
And in the 1970s, we launched the Viking probe to go take pictures of the red planet. And it came back, it flew over this massive structure that looked like a face. And it's not...
Oh, yeah.
I
did see that.
Yeah, it's not a trick of the light. It's not, like when you see a face in a cloud. It's not your brain looking for a pattern. It's a fucking... carving of an insane proportion, dimension. And in this region, and here's the thing, if it was just that, okay, maybe it's a weird trick of the light or whatever. But this face on Mars in the Cydonia region, near it, relatively speaking, are pyramids that look like pyramids. Man-made. To me, they look man-made.
Or alien-made.
Yeah, or perhaps we are the Martians. And so, to me, the possibility of an ancient civilization on Mars is very, very high for a number of reasons. We need to think back to how the solar system works. So, when the galaxies were forming and when our solar system was new, the sun is cooling. It goes through cycles, but the sun is cooling. Yeah. So the sun was, millions of years ago, billions of years ago, the sun was much hotter. And so we're in what we call the habitable zone, the Goldilocks zone. But that would have been different billions of years ago, where Mars would have been in the habitable zone. Earth would have been too hot to support complex life. And so Mars would have been in that zone of sort of have an Earth-like climate. And so if you think about that, it is, to me, highly possible that complex life formed on Mars during that time. And perhaps they did evolve over billions of years to this amazing civilization that was able to build these incredible structures. But as the sun began to cool and Mars was falling out of this perfect habitable zone to a less temperate climate, the civilization began to die off. Maybe they came to Earth as it became more habitable. Now, having said that, especially on YouTube, God bless you, YouTube. That you see all these people that have these channels and these videos where they're proving there's still life on Mars, or they found an ancient alien skull on Mars through a rover photo, which is really just a rock.
Right.
And they're looking for stuff that it's called pelodactyl. I can't remember. It's seeing a pattern where
everybody looks for patterns.
Yeah, we look for patterns. So we see things that aren't really there. In the 90s though, because of the outcry, when NASA sent a new probe to Mars, everybody said, well, not everybody, but the UFO community was really screaming about getting another picture of the face on Mars. And so NASA acquiesced and took a picture from the same angle on the face on Mars, and it's just this flat, eroded surface. And they said, look, this is what it is. It was just a trick of the light. It was just this perfectly timed thing. And I believe 100% that the Viking photo is real. and that the new photo was doctored.
Oh, really?
And to me, it looks doctored.
Uh-huh.
It just looks. There's no way, because when you look at the Viking photo, it's a face. There's no doubting it. It kind of looks like a Sphinx-ish face. And when you look at the new photo that came back in the I believe the late '90s of the face, which is just this worn sort of plateau. And again, look, I'm not a geologist, but it's so different.
Mm-hmm.
There's not even a feature. It's literally impossible in 20 years for something to turn from looking like this to, it's a trick of the light, and it didn't look like that at all. That's insane. I do believe NASA knows there was an ancient civilization on Mars. They talk about how, if there was a civilization, where's the proof? There's no structures or whatever. You grew up in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
You know the economic turmoil that Michigan's gone through since the 80s, right? I mean, when the car plants started closing down, and there are towns in Michigan that are completely abandoned. And if you want a perfect example on why there is no evidence of either ancient aliens, and again, I don't like the show Ancient Aliens because they're just they conflate a lot of stuff. I don't dislike it, but a lot of it's for, of course, ratings. You're doing a show. But it's the same argument with the Ancient Aliens. Where's all the equipment that it took to build this stuff or whatever? There are these towns in Michigan that have only been abandoned for 20, 30 years, some even less. And nature's completely taking it over. The metal rusts, it falls apart, the buildings are overgrown. You can't, there's no evidence because the Earth reclaims its own. Mars has a very limited atmosphere, but there's still an atmosphere. The winds of Mars are very powerful. So the evidence isn't there because time erodes the evidence. When we look at these, when you go to Mexico and you see these amazing Mayan temples like Teotihuacan and all this stuff, the Temple of the Sun, they weren't just sitting out in the open. They were overgrown. It took really educated archaeologists who knew what they were looking for to realize that mountain wasn't a mountain. It was a pyramid, and they had to excavate away.
And Belize are doing it right now too. It takes a long time because you have to be careful and for the safety of the archaeologists and for the preservation of the artifacts.
Right, and it's not easy. But again, if you look at old photos from the late 1800s, early 1900s of when they were discovering these ancient Mayan and Aztec cities, it just looks like mountains and hills. And it wasn't until they started, again, very carefully skimming away the topsoil on the surface and removing fucking trees that they found these things. I think the advantage on Mars is that it lost a big chunk of its atmosphere, again, due to possibly leaving the habitable zone as the sun cooled, and so it's all desert. Although there are photos from Mars orbiters and rovers, or not rovers, but the different Mars orbiters that show what people say are herds of animals running across. Maybe, I don't know. Fields of trees. I don't know, but I have seen photos, and again, I haven't had it's not like top secret. It's out there, and some are on the NASA fucking website. There is no mistaking that there are built what look like buildings on Mars, very ancient stone carved buildings, and it's not a trick of the light. It's not the wind, So is there a civilization now? I highly doubt it. Did we teleport there in the 70s and 80s? Probably not.
Yeah, I really like this was I found from the website that was saying that they did that.
What was the website?
I don't remember.
But
it's multiple that I've found.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's who did it? Andrew Basiago. He's
Okay.
he ran for president in 2016, and he
Oh,
couldn't
he's-
have been worse, honestly, than what we have now.
Well, and Andrew Basiago is a guy who claims to have.
He was one of the child jumpers.
He was one of the child jumpers. He jumped back to the Civil War and also forward in time.
Yeah, and he saw Barack Obama.
Yeah, he's full of shit.
Yeah. Yep. So that was actually part of it to explain. I didn't know this. Is that during they had 140 children successfully would jump
Right.
to Mars with this space travel thing, but a lot of them either got fucked up, they got left behind, so now they're kept underground on Mars. So obviously.
Obviously.
Mars is controlled by a supreme being that's also controlling our government. In case you wondered.
Sure.
But then they also saw same beings that they see in cave drawings, like hieroglyphics. So they saw them on Mars.
Right, and who's telling us this?
I think it was Andrew Basiago and company. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah. So when they were there, that they found the underground.
And what is Andrew's reason for the U.S. government using children to jump to Mars?
Oh, I think it was just because they were easier to transport.
Yeah. No, you know why Andrew Basiago says that it was children that were used to jump to Mars? Because it fits his timeline.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. Because
he used to be he was like a lawyer, right? Like he was actually used to have like a career.
Yeah, but David Icke had a career too before
true.
he started talking about the Jew lizard people that run the world. Before he had a psychotic fucking break.
Yeah.
No, Andrew Basiago is a con man.
Yeah.
He's either a con man or he's just insane.
Yeah.
But Andrew Basiago, it has to be children because he was a child at that time.
Yeah.
And here's what I know about the United States government, especially black ops. They love the reliability of children to carry out complex missions.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a parent. I have friends who are parents, and they have a couple of my friends, their children are in the genius spectrum.
Yeah.
Getting these fuckers to put on pants. Are you fucking kidding me? So you can't get Timmy, who's a straight A student and very, very focused, to put on pants or not have a meltdown when it's time to take a shower or a bath.
Yeah.
You're going to send him to the Civil War
They're good jumpers.
or to
Real good
Mars.
jumpers.
No, it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
I like that the last line in my notes, because I was reading a bunch of articles, and I wrote one article I read said, if I believe in conspiracy theories, I'm probably a narcissist.
Is that your thought?
No, that's what it said in the article. It was like, people who believe in conspiracy theories are probably narcissists. I was like, oh, okay.
That's interesting. I mean, I believe in some conspiracy theories because conspiracy theories have proven to be true more often than not.
Right.
But this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is an idiot who is hoping he can fool people. Again, if everything's true, nothing is true.
Yeah.
But Andrew Basiago is, again, he's just looking. He traveled back in time to the Civil War when he was like 8. Traveled to Mars. No fucking way.
I know.
No fucking way. There's no way a multi-billion-dollar top secret government project. Because again, here's what we know about children. Great under pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good.
Really, really good with alien environments and new things. And
I
also
saw Stranger Things. Those kids were okay with it.
those kids are okay. They also shit their pants.
Yeah.
And also a really good thing we know about little kids. Can really keep a secret.
Yeah, it's really great at not blurting out things. Like this little boy in my apartment complex. My mom and my dad don't live together anymore. And his dad was like, oh, God. I was like, it's okay.
I told you not to say anything. No. Grab your backpack. It's time to go to Mars.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, how many little children, when you sit them down and explain that something's a top secret project and they can't tell anybody, really understand those complexities.
Yeah.
And don't ask you a million questions like, well, what about my sister? No, you can't tell you. Well, what about my best friend Joey? You can't tell Joey. Or if you tell Joey, we're going to have to kill you and Joey. What? Shut up, eat this peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
It's okay. No, you don't use.
I mean, I think the argument against that would be that they would say, well, it was traumatic for them. So that's because kids will keep secrets of things that are like, they'll like block it out. But still, it's not.
No.
There's
No. And again, was it traumatic or did it not happen?
Yeah.
And also, is it traumatic? I can see going to the Civil War being a more traumatic than going to Mars for a child. It's a wondrous experience.
We might see for ourselves in the next few months. You never know.
What?
A civil war.
Yeah, that's true. You know, and again, all the children will be fighting on the front lines because, again, nothing better than a 9-year-old with an assault rifle.
Yeah.
So, no, Andrew Basiago is insane.
Yeah.
And then you also have guys like Richard Hoagland who've been in it for a long time, who I actually think Hoagland, who was one of the first people to talk about the face on Mars and give it credence, has lost his mind and sees Nazi symbolism on Mars.
I mean, I see Nazi symbolism everywhere.
Unite the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because they're carrying flags.
Yeah.
You're not seeing like a weird shaped rock that he now believes is a Nazi helmet.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like there's at some point you just go insane.
Yeah.
If you don't walk away, you either go insane or you're again. It's a money game. It's again. No one's driving a Ferrari, but you get into this and it turns from a passion to your income.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and it's all double speak and bullshit. And yeah, Andrew Basiago drives me insane. And they, you know.
But would he have been a better president than President Donald Trump?
Anybody would have been a president. I would have been a better president
Yeah.
than Donald Trump. And I say that as a man who most likely would have had a threesome in the Lincoln bedroom by now if I was. But again, I'm single. I can do that. You shouldn't.
Right.
No. President Trump's terrible. But you know. But when you look at it realistically, in terms of, let's just try and step away from Montauk, and is there a civilization now? If we can prove the you know, and again we can't prove, but if we can logically talk about, well, let's look at the evidence. We have these massive stone structures and smaller structures in various places on Mars that, you know, the wind would have to be blowing in 9 directions at once.
Yeah.
And as strange and bizarre as nature is on the planet, it's not how wind works. And to have these fully symmetrical pyramids and buildings, it's just not how nature works. Now, I don't like people that say nature never draws a straight line. Nature actually does.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when you look at quartz crystals and other things like that, but that's on more of a micro level. Massively does it, I don't know, especially out of stone. But again, the sun was much hotter billions of years ago. Earth would have been, you know, where Venus or Mercury is, and slowly, you know, so Mars moves out of that habitable zone. And if you are a species, if you're a race that has been able to create what I think are these massive structures, you can probably get to, like, we can get to Mars, we can get to the moon if we have the technology to do it.
Yeah.
It's not like interstellar travel. So if they are able to build these, and remember, Mars is much larger than Earth, and so these structures are much larger than the pyramids on Earth and the other structures, these megalithic structures we have. If you can build those fucking things, you can get to Earth.
Yeah.
And so I'm very much of the opinion that it is more than possible that there was an advanced civilization on Mars billions of years ago, and that as Mars started to die, or as maybe wars broke out on Mars, as we know we are a warlike species, some of the Martians came here, and perhaps I'm not saying 100%, but it's because again, it is, I will say this, it is far more likely scientifically that happened, where the Martians seeded Earth, than two bipedal species evolving on two completely separate
Yeah.
planets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's far more of a crapshoot. Like when you see aliens and stuff like that, it is not necessarily the most efficient form.
Uh-huh.
You know, a couple more arms would be much more efficient.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if we were loaded, you know what I mean? So I don't know this. I don't know the scientific. I don't know the percentage, the odds of two bipedal species of the same configuration forming on two completely separate planets.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, maybe was it like a chicken or an egg thing, and the kids transported to ancient Mars. They left him there. They made the civilization.
I don't know. They get their cootie shots.
I hope so.
So what do you think?
I think it's possible, especially after what they've been finding a lot, that there is an atmosphere and like all of the. I like the more scientific-y, like
Well, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
no, I know. Like, so, like, there's the methane, the water, and the manganese.
Yeah.
So, like,
And
something was there, I
Yeah.
think. And hopefully can be there, because we're going to need it. And,
Well, there's also a blue sky,
Mhm.
which is interesting, because for
Yeah.
years and years and years, those photos were filtered to make it look like there was just nothing
yeah.
there, like it was just a dead planet.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly they've been releasing more realistic looking pictures,
So-
which is interesting to me.
Why do you think that they would hide that they know that there's an ancient civilization? Because it would freak people out?
well,
'Cause Jesus was the first civilization?
Yeah. Well, I think there was a report from in the 60s, maybe earlier, from the Brookings Institute, which is a think tank, which talked about what would happen if the governments of the world disclosed the existence of alien life. And that it would destroy countries and religion, and so you'd lose the power structure. And I think a lot of them still sort of follow that metric of, well, if we release it, you know, everybody will shit their pants.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's the same now, although I shouldn't say that. I believed in the 90s you could have released it and it wouldn't have been a shock, but we've really regressed. Again, you and I live in a very small intellectual hub.
Uh-huh.
And even though I consider LA an intellectual hub, you know, LA, San Francisco, New York, Boston, Chicago.
Coastal elites.
Yeah. But there's still idiots here. But again, when you have Republican senators and congressmen who sit on science commissions that don't believe in climate change or evolution, that basically, you know, dinosaurs and humans roamed the earth at the same time. It's basically the Flintstones.
Or what's that movie? Land of the Lost? Or
Land of the
show?
Lost. You know, especially in these rural southern communities. Yeah, I think you would freak the fuck out. However, if it truly was an ancient civilization on Mars, I don't see why the big freak out would be. But also don't forget, because I think we talked about this on the Men in Black episode, which is, you know, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And so there may be a far more nefarious
Fair.
thing going on that they don't want to admit. But maybe things are changing. I don't know. Excuse me. I think under President Trump, the chance of intellectual discourse and discussion on these things is very unlikely.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. But you know, is there a civilization there now? I don't think so. But I think it's like, you know, but I think there's evidence that there was. It just, to me, but that's just my, again, I don't have, it's just, that's an opinion.
You just feel like that.
Well, I feel logically,
Yeah.
you know, it's an opinion. Now, don't get me wrong, it would be fucking awesome if there was a civilization on Mars.
Currently,
that, you know,
underground.
yeah, you know, and again, and we can get into this when we talk about the Hollow Earth in a few weeks, but, you know, I think, it certainly is possible. I shouldn't say that. It would be possible to have an underground civilization. I just don't know. I think we would have seen solid proof of that, because why hide from us?
Yeah.
We can't, the way we run our space program, we ain't coming.
Yeah.
We're not a threat to you.
Right.
So yeah, but I think absolutely billions of years ago, hundreds of millions of years ago, maybe not billions, but hundreds of millions of years ago, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's possible.
Right. So we Andrew Basciago,
Crazy person.
the possibility of a civilization of life evolving on Mars.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We agree?
Yeah.
Wow. Kind of take that, everybody who thinks we shit all over your dreams.
Oh yeah, this is probably one of the first ones where we're like totally. Well, we usually have like one piece of every conspiracy theory
Well,
that
but
we believe in.
we believe. Well, I believed in Roswell and sort of convinced you a little bit, even though I know you're on the fence.
Yeah.
We both think JFK.
Yeah.
Well, you were still kind of on the fence, but you were open.
Yeah.
We both think RFK.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was dirty pool, man.
Yeah. We both thought black-eyed children were stupid.
Bullshit.
Men in Black, there's something there.
There's something there. Yeah, so we're we're not all bad.
Yeah.
But what do you think, everybody? Do you think Andrew Basciago, who actually as a child was a super secret agent that
Along with Barack Obama.
well, yeah. Standards, people. And what about life on Mars? What do y'all think? I'd love to hear it. Leave comments. Go to my website, jonathanlatt.com. Go to my social media. I don't have a reason for that. Buy my book. I got a couple of new books coming out next year. And go to Angie's website. Although you don't want people to hire you.
Well, I already have a job.
You have a job.
So, yeah, I don't need a new one.
But go check it out. She's a very talented UX designer.
Yeah.
And you are listening to Jarvik 8. Go to Kevin McLeod's website at incompetech.com if you need royalty-free music.
Go to Andrew Basciago's website.
Go to Andrew Basciago's website. At the very least, it's very entertaining.
Yeah.
But you have been listening to the Perilous Podcast, and we will be back next week. Thanks for coming by, Angie.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Bye.